Good evening, and welcome to Letters from the Front. Tonight the air is cold, and as we draw closer to the warmth of our studio's fire, our journey takes us back to the coldest winter of the war. The year is 1944. The place a snow-choked forest in the Ardennes, where thousands of young men found themselves caught in the brutal, unexpected fury of the Battle of the Bulge. In such a place, home is not a location on a map. It is a memory, a face, a feeling held tight against the encroaching frost. For a young American sergeant named Jimmy Sullivan, home had a name, Eleanor. Their connection stretched thin across an ocean and a continent at war, was kept alive by the most fragile of threads, ink on paper. Tonight, we are privileged to unfold one such testament. A letter written not just with a pen, but with the very essence of a soul fighting to remember itself. So find a quiet space, let the world outside fall away, and let us open this letter together. My dearest Eleanor, December 18th, 1944, somewhere in the Ardennes. The world has fallen silent, El. It is a silence of a peculiar and terrifying kind. The sort that follows a great and violent noise and seems to hold its breath, waiting for the next shattering symphony to begin. For the last hour, the great iron beast of war has slumbered, and in its place, a different kind of monster has awoken the cold. It is a living thing here, in this forest, predator that stalks us without sound. It seeps through the thick wool of our coats, through the worn leather of our boots, and settles deep within our bones, a permanent resident in the marrow. I am writing this from a hole scraped out of the frozen Belgian earth, a makeshift burrow that smells of damp soil, pine needles, and the faint metallic tang of fear. The only light comes from a stub of a candle, its flame a tiny defiant dancer in the oppressive dark, casting our haggard shadows against the earthen walls. They flicker and leap like ghosts. In a story you might read grand and grotesque things that bear little resemblance to the tired, hollowed-out boys who cast them. There's a kid named Peterson to my left, asleep for the first time in what must be 2 days. He can't be more than 18. He has the kind of soft, round face that should be worrying about exams or asking a girl to a dance, but instead it's smudged with dirt and exhaustion. Tiny crystals of ice have formed on his eyelashes and the faint stubble on his chin. We are all boys, playing at being men, dressed in the costumes of soldiers, whispering stories of home to keep the encroaching darkness at bay. Home. The word itself feels like a foreign country, a sun-drenched landscape from a half-forgotten dream. When I try to picture Vermont to summon the image of our little town, the details sometimes blur at the edges, worn smooth by the relentless friction of this reality. But I never forget you. You, Eleanor, are the one piece of that world that remains in sharp, painful, beautiful focus. That is why I write. I know the journey this letter must take is a perilous one. It will be passed from one frozen hand to another, stuffed into a mud-caked canvas bag, and carried across an ocean that feels impossibly wide. It may arrive weeks from now, long after the moment of its creation has passed into memory. But I must write. I must perform this ritual, this act of faith. Holding this pen, feeling the scratch of its nib on this precious thin paper, is the only thing that peels away the layers of mud and fear in the uniform of Sergeant Sullivan, and lets me for a little while be your Jimmy again. The simple act of forming your name on the page is a prayer. Eleanor. It is the sound of church bells on a clear Sunday morning, the feeling of warm sun on my face, the taste of wild strawberries we picked by the river. Your last letter is tucked inside my coat, pressed against my heart. It is my shield and my secret warmth. I have read it so many times that the paper has grown soft, almost translucent along the creases. I know every word, every turn of phrase by heart. I can trace the elegant curve of your E, the determined stroke of your T. I read it in the deepest troughs of the night, when the shelling is at its worst and the frozen earth trembles beneath us. I mouth the word silently, and in the cacophony of destruction, your voice becomes the only thing I can hear. You wrote about the first proper snowfall, how it blanketed the town and had a profound quiet, and how you walked up to Miller's Ridge just to look out over the valley. You said it was beautiful, but that the beauty felt incomplete without me there to share it. In those moments reading those words, I'm not here. I am there with you, standing on that ridge, the cold, clean air filling my lungs, instead of this stagnant subterranean breath. I can almost feel the warmth of your hand in mine. A phantom warmth, but it is more real to me than the biting cold that is my constant companion. It is the only heat I have. It is strange what the mind chooses to cling to in a place like this. It is not the grand speeches or the patriotic songs that echo in my head. It is the little things, the insignificant moments that now reveal themselves to be the very architecture of my soul. I remember the scent of the old books in your library, a mixture of aging paper leather and your faint lavender perfume. I remember the precise shade of blue of the robin's eggs we found in the nest behind your house last spring. I remember the way you bite your lower lip when you're concentrating on a difficult passage in a book, a small gesture that fills me with a tenderness so vast it threatens to break me. These memories are my rations. When the hunger gnaws at my belly, I feast on the memory of your apple pie. When the thirst cracks my lips, I drink from the memory of the cool stream we swam in last July. They are all I have to sustain me. They are the fragile threads that tether me to sanity, to the man I was, to the man I swear I will be again. The quiet has stretched on for too long now. A nervous energy is beginning to stir in the dugout. Men are checking their rifles, whispering to one another. The beast is waking. I must go. But as I fold this letter, I will close my eyes and picture you sitting by the fire, a book in your lap, waiting. Hold that image for me, Elle. Keep it safe. It is the lighthouse that guides me through this endless violent sea. The beast did wake my love. It woke in a fury of sound and light that seemed intent on tearing the very fabric of the sky apart. The brief, fragile silence was consumed by the roar of artillery, a monstrous, hungry sound that you feel not just in your ears, but in your teeth, in the hollow of your chest. For a time, I could not think, could not feel anything but the primal urge to survive. To press myself deeper into the unyielding frozenness of the earth. The world was reduced to a series of blinding white flashes against the snow, the sharp crack of rifle fire, and the guttural screams of men who were only moments before just boys whispering of home. In that maelstrom, Elle held on to your lighthouse. I closed my eyes against the strobing hellscape and saw you by the fire, your head bent over a book, the light catching the auburn in your hair. It was an act of desperate, willful imagination, a prayer sent out into the violent chaos, and somehow it was enough. It kept me anchored. And then, as quickly as it began, it was over. The great beast, sated for the moment, retreated, leaving behind an ringing silence, and the fresh, acrid smell of cordite hanging in the air like a shroud. We are fewer now. I will not write their names. I cannot. To write them would be to give them a finality I am not yet strong enough to accept. Instead, I will write of something else. In the aftermath, as the medics did their grim work, and the rest of us tried to coax feeling back into our frozen limbs, my mind fled. It fled this forest of shattered trees and shattered men, and it flew across the ocean, across the winter, and landed in the full, glorious sunshine of last August. It landed on a mountain, our mountain. Do you remember that day on Mount Mansfield, Elle? I remember everything. I remember the impossible blue of the sky, a shade so pure and deep it felt like you could dive into it. I remember the warmth of the sun on our skin, a gentle, benevolent heat that was the very antithesis of the malignant cold I feel now. We were alive, and the world was ours. The air tasted of pine and clean earth, and with every breath, I felt the worries of the world below us shrink into insignificance. You were wearing that simple floral dress, the one with the little blue and yellow flowers. It fluttered in the breeze as we climbed, and I remember thinking you were some kind of forest spirit too bright and beautiful for the ordinary world. You laughed at me when I said it, that wonderful, uninhibited laugh that always makes me feel as though I've just said the cleverest thing in the world. You also laughed at my climbing. You said I scrambled over the rocks like a goat with delusions of grandeur. And you were right. You moved with a natural grace, finding footholds, as if the mountain itself were showing you the way. I was all clumsy enthusiasm, scraping my knees, my lungs burning, but I would have followed you to the moon. All that mattered was the view ahead, the endless green expanse of the Vermont mountains, and you just a few steps ahead, occasionally looking back over your shoulder to smile, your eyes brighter than the summer sky. That is the image that burns in my mind's eye, a perfect crystalline memory. It is a world away from here, where every tree is not a promise of shade and beauty, but a potential hiding place for the enemy, where the ground beneath my feet is not solid and trustworthy, but a treacherous landscape of ice and hidden death. Here, we are not climbing towards the sky. We are burrowing away from it. We reached the summit in the late afternoon. We stood on the chin hand in hand, feeling the wind whip our hair, and looked out at a world that seemed to be laid at our feet. We were invincible. There was no war, no draft, no looming shadow of separation. There was only the sun, the wind, and the quiet, unshakable certainty of our love. It was then on a little ledge just below the peak that I saw it, a small, resilient cluster of white, growing in a place that seemed to defy possibility. Edelweiss. I knew you loved them, knew the stories you'd read of them being a symbol of pure love and bravery in the old countries. I didn't think. I just knew I had to get one for you. You protested, of course, telling me the ledge was too dangerous, but I was possessed by the beautiful, foolish certainty of a young man in love. I scrambled down, my heart pounding more from the look in your eyes than from the drop below, and plucked the most perfect one. When I climbed back up and placed it in your hand, your fingers closed around it so gently. You looked from the flower to me, and your eyes held a universe of emotion. It was more than gratitude. It was a deep, profound understanding that transcended words. But the words you spoke are etched onto my soul. You held it up to the light, its felted star-like petals seeming to glow in the sun, and you whispered, "It's a promise, Jimmy. As rare and as strong as this. A promise." We sealed it with a kiss high above the world, and in that moment, our future felt as solid and real as the mountain beneath our feet. We would build a house, raise a family, grow old together. It was all there in that one perfect moment. I am holding on to that promise now. L, like a drowning man, clings to a piece of driftwood. The memory has faded, and the cold of this dugout is rushing back in as a merciless tide. The walls feel closer, the air thicker. I look at my hands, calloused and grimy, and I wonder if they are the same hands that so gently plucked that flower for you. The war aims to grind away everything that is fine, everything that is beautiful, within a man leaving only a hard, functional shell. I am fighting against that, L. I am fighting it harder than I fight the enemy I can see. I have to believe that the man from the mountain is still in here, somewhere beneath the mud and the fear. He has to be. He promised, fighting to keep that man from the mountain alive. L is a strange kind of battle. It's fought in silence in the dead hours of the night, when the cold is at its most vicious. It is a war waged not with a rifle, but with memory. Every day this place tries to scour him away. It tries to replace him with a creature of pure instinct, a thing that knows how to stay low, how to tell the difference between the whistle of the wind and the whistle of an incoming shell, how to kill without thinking. And every day I fight back. I force myself to remember the feel of grass under my bare feet, the taste of your mother's lemonade, the specific cadence of your voice when you read poetry aloud. It is exhausting work, this act of remembering. It is perhaps the hardest work I have ever done. Life here has a rhythm, but it is not the rhythm of a world where the sun rises and sets. Time has lost its shape. We live not by the clock, but by a brutal cycle of watchfulness and collapse. We stand guard for hours that stretch into eternity, our eyes straining to see through the perpetual twilight of the forest. Every shadow a potential threat. Then we fall into a sleep so deep it feels like a small death, only to be jolted awake by a shout or the gnawing emptiness in our stomachs. Hunger is our most constant companion, a dull, persistent ache that underscores every thought, every action. We talk about food more than we talk about women, more than we talk about home. We conjure phantom banquets in the freezing air, thick steaks, mountains of mashed potatoes pies, bursting with summer fruit. A boy from Brooklyn named Sal swore yesterday he would trade his rifle for a single hot slice of his grandmother's pizza. We all laughed, but not a man here doubted he meant it. The boys I share this hole with, they are the ones who keep me sane and the ones who break my heart. They are trying so desperately to be the men the posters told them to be, but in the quiet moments, the mask slips. Sal, the kid with the pizza dreams, has a rosary that he clutches so tightly his knuckles are permanently white. There's a quiet farm boy from Iowa Billy who can't be a day over 17. He stares at a worn photograph of a smiling girl for hours on end, never saying a word. We are a brotherhood forged in shared misery. We don't speak of the things we've seen or the fear that lives in our guts like a coiled snake. Instead, we trade cigarettes, share the last of our rations, and talk about the world we left behind. We talk about baseball and cars and the girls we promised we'd come back to. We create a fragile temporary bubble of normalcy, and for a little while, we can almost believe. We are just a group of American boys on a camping trip that has gone horribly wrong. But then the artillery begins again, and the bubble bursts, and we are once more what we have become, old men in young bodies with eyes that have seen too much. In the face of all this, Eleanor, my faith has changed. I confess this to you because I can confess it to no one else. I no longer pray for victory or for the grand, noble causes we are told we are fighting for. My prayers have become small, desperate, intensely personal. I pray for a pair of dry socks. I pray for the shelling to stop, if only for an hour. I pray for the strength to do my duty when the time comes. Most of all, and most frequently, I pray that I will not forget your face. That is my greatest fear, El. It is a terror that surpasses any fear of bullets or shrapnel. The thought that one day I might try to summon your image and find only a vague, blurry outline. That is a prospect more horrifying than death itself. Because if I lose you, the last clear beacon of the man I was, then what is left to save? This war can take my life in an instant, but my deepest fear is that it will take my soul piece by piece, memory by memory, until all that remains is a hollow shell that wears my name. So I perform my ritual. Here now in the wavering candlelight, I am doing it again. I shrug off my pack and carefully take out my field notebook. The cover is stained and warped by the damp, but the pages inside are mostly dry. I turn past my clumsy sketches of trees and terrain, past the names of towns I can't pronounce, until I reach the middle pages. There, pressed between two sheets of paper like a sacred relic, it lies. My piece of Vermont, my proof, the Edelweiss. Even in this miserable light, it is perfect. Its delicate star-shaped petals, like soft white felt, are unbroken. It is a small, impossible miracle of preservation in a world dedicated to ruin. I touch it with the tip of my finger so gently, half afraid it might crumble to dust, the final casualty of this war. But it remains whole resilient. It does not belong here. It is a creature of sunlight and high, clean air, a testament to a world of beauty and peace. And yet, it is here, with me. It survived the journey across the ocean. It has survived the mud and the snow and the thunder of the guns. It is more than a memory of a promise, Eleanor. It is the promise itself still alive, still holding on. I hold it in my palm, and I can almost feel the warmth of that summer day. I can almost smell the mountain air. It is a tangible piece of the man I'm fighting to remain. It is a whisper from our world to this one, a whisper that says, I am still here. Wait for me. That whisper, El, the one that comes from the fragile pressed flower, it feels like the only true thing in this entire God-forsaken forest. Everything else is a lie, or at least a half-truth. We are fed grand words on posters and in crackling radio broadcasts that reach us from a world away. They speak of liberty, of tyranny, of a generation's solemn duty to fight for the soul of the world. I have seen the newsreels in the little theater back home, the ones with the triumphant music and the maps showing the relentless march of our armies. I have listened to officers with clean uniforms and warm offices tell us why we must hold this line, why our sacrifice is essential to the great and noble cause. And on some level, in the quiet, rational part of my mind that still exists, I believe it. I have seen what the enemy is capable of. I have walked through French villages where the joy of liberation in the people's eyes is haunted by the shadow of what they endured. I believe in the cause. But that belief, El, is a distant thing. It is a concept, an idea. It is a fire that burns far away, and its warmth does not reach me here in this frozen foxhole. When the world is exploding around you, when the air is thick with the screams of your friends, when the cold is so absolute that you forget what it ever felt like to be warm, abstract nouns like liberty and duty offer very little comfort. They become just words, hollowed out and stripped of their meaning by the sheer brutal reality of it all. So I confess to you, my love, a truth that feels like a betrayal to the men fighting and dying beside me. My reason for being here, my reason for picking up my rifle, when every fiber of my being wants to curl up and disappear, is not a flag or a country or a cause. It is you. It has always been you. When I am pushed to the very edge of my endurance, the image I summon is not of a liberated Paris or a defeated Reich. It is the image of you standing on the porch of your house waving goodbye to me, a brave smile on your face that didn't quite reach your eyes. My why we fight is the hope of one day walking up that path again. My patriotism is the fierce, desperate desire to preserve the world that you live in, the world where people can read books and plant gardens and fall in love. You are my nation. You are my flag. You are my only cause. And a part of me feels a profound guilt for this, for reducing this immense world-altering conflict to something so intensely personal. Am I a worse soldier for it? A lesser man, I do not know. I only know that the thought of your hazel eyes is a more powerful motivator than any general's speech. This singular focus on you is also my greatest vulnerability, because the man who loves you is being systematically hunted. Not by the enemy, but by the war itself. It happened again just yesterday. A brief, vicious skirmish in a clearing of skeletal-looking fir trees. It was over in minutes. I can't tell you the details, not because they are secret, but because they are a chaotic blur of noise and instinct. The snap of bullets passing so close you can hear them hiss. The frantic metallic rhythm of reloading. The smell of hot gunpowder and pine sap. In those moments, something inside me changes. A switch is flipped. The fear doesn't vanish, but it becomes cold and sharp, a tool to be used. All emotion recedes. The part of me that sketches landscapes and reads poetry, the part that loves you. With an ache that is almost holy, it goes dark. In its place is a machine, a thing of cold calculation and brutal efficiency, whose only purpose is to neutralize threats and stay alive. The truly terrifying part. L is not what happens during the fight, but what happens after. The emptiness. For a long time after the silence returns, the machine remains in control. I can check my ammunition, clean my rifle, and speak to my comrades with a calmness that feels utterly alien. But I feel nothing. It is a vast, echoing void where my soul used to be. And I am so afraid, Eleanor. I am terrified that one day after a battle that is too long or too brutal, the switch will flip and it will simply get stuck. I'm afraid the man will not return, that only the machine will remain wearing my face and answering to my name. Who will come home to you then? What hollow-eyed stranger will walk up your path? A man who knows how to survive a war, but has forgotten how to live in the world you have so lovingly preserved. That is the obstacle, the true enemy I face every single day. A new replacement arrived this morning. A kid from Oregon. He has red hair, a spray of freckles across his nose, and the wide, terrified eyes of a cornered animal. He looks so much like your brother Thomas that it physically hurt me to look at him. He fumbled with his gear, his hands shaking so badly he could barely fasten his helmet strap. I saw in him the boy I was when I first arrived. A boy who still believed this was some kind of grim adventure. And I felt this overwhelming, ferocious wave of protectiveness, a feeling so strong it almost brought me to my knees. I wanted to shield him, to tell him everything would be all right, to send him home to his family. But I also felt a surge of helpless, bitter rage that the world is a place that takes boys like him, boys like your brother, and feeds them into this infernal machine. I helped him with his strap, showed him how to properly clean his rifle in this cold, and told him to stay close to me. I saw a flicker of gratitude in his scared eyes. But in protecting him, am I just teaching another gentle soul how to become a machine? This feeling, this terrible, crushing weight of trying to shepherd a boy who wears your brother's face through this labyrinth of death, it brought me to a place of profound darkness last night. After I helped the new kid, after I saw him huddled in his corner, trying not to let the rest of us see him shake, I took the watch. It was the dead of night, the hour the old folks say is when the veil between worlds is at its thinnest. And out here, I believe it. The moon was a sliver of ice behind a scrim of clouds, casting just enough light to turn the snow-laden pine trees into an army of silent, watching specters. The men whisper about them. They call them the ghosts of the forest. Men who have been out here too long. Men who are worn down to the nub of their souls. They start to see things in those shadows. They see the faces of fallen comrades of the enemy. They killed their eyes wide with a final, terrible surprise. I always thought it was just exhaustion playing tricks on the mind. But last night, I saw a ghost of my own. It wasn't the face of a dead soldier. It was the face of a man I fear more than any other. It was my own. I saw him, Eleanor, as clearly as I see this page. A version of me, older, with eyes as empty as a winter sky, walking up the path to your front door. He wore my uniform, but he was a stranger, a hollow man. He moved with the cold efficiency of the machine I told you about, and there was no light in him, no memory of mountains or poetry or you. He was the man who survived the war, but lost it. He was the ultimate casualty. And in that moment, staring into the oppressive darkness of the Ardennes, I felt a despair so absolute, so complete, that it was almost a relief. A voice cold and rational whispered inside my head. Let go. Stop fighting it. The machine knows how to survive. The man does not. Let the man die so the body can live. It was a siren song, promising an end to the pain, an end to the struggle of trying to be human in a place that punishes humanity. I almost listened. I almost surrendered. But then another image rose up to meet the ghost. It was you. Not the memory of you on the mountain, bright and laughing in the sun, but a quieter memory. It was you last winter, asleep in the armchair by the fire in your father's library. A book had fallen into your lap, your head was tilted to the side, and your face in the soft firelight was so peaceful, so full of a gentle goodness that it seemed to radiate a warmth that could hold the entire world's darkness at bay. You were the embodiment of everything this war is trying to destroy. You were peace. You were home. You were the world I am fighting for. And the ghost of the hollow man, the empty soldier, could not exist in the same universe as you. The memory of your sleeping face was my shield. It was my salvation. It gave me the strength to fight back. And so I must tell you the most honest thing I have ever written. I cannot promise you that I will come home, Elle. That is a promise no soldier has the right to make. Every dawn here is a stolen gift, every sunset a reprieve we did not earn. To promise you my return would be to lie to you, and I cannot bear the thought of my last words to you being a falsehood. The machine may be efficient, but it is also fragile. A piece of shrapnel no bigger than my thumb, a single well-aimed bullet. The line between being and not being is thinner than this paper. So I will not make you a promise I'm not certain I can keep. Instead, I will make you a different one, a greater one, a promise that is truly mine to give. I promise you that I will not let the man who loves you die. I will not surrender him to the cold, to the machine, to the ghosts in the trees. I will fight for him more fiercely than I fight for any inch of this frozen ground. I will guard our memories, the sunlight on the mountain, the scent of your library, the sound of your laughter, as if they are the last sources of light and warmth on earth. I will keep that part of my soul that is yours safe, even if I have to build a fortress of fire and steel around it. They can take my body, Elle. They can break my bones and spill my blood. But I swear to you, on whatever is left of my faith, they will not have him. The man who climbed a mountain for you will be the man who comes home to you, or he will not come home at all. That is my true battle. That is my sacred vow. As I write this, my hand is shaking, not from the cold, but from the force of this conviction. I have taken out the Edelweiss again. This is my witness. In the pathetic, flickering light of this candle, I lift the fragile star-shaped flower to my lips. It is a silent communion, a renewal of the promise we made on a sun-drenched peak. The paper-thin petals are cool against my skin, and I swear, Elle, I swear I can almost smell it. Not the damp, earthy smell of this dugout, but the clean, sharp scent of the high mountain air, the scent of freedom and endless sky. I am sealing my new promise with this phantom kiss, sending it across the darkness to you. I will not let you down. I will keep him safe for you. I will. I feel a strange calm now, Elle. After writing that promise, after sealing it with the memory of our mountain, the frantic terror in my heart has subsided. It has been replaced by a quiet, resolute strength. The ghost in the trees has retreated, and the roar of the machine in my soul has been silenced. For the first time in a long time, I feel whole. I know what my true mission is. It is not to take a ridge or hold a line. It is to be the custodian of a love so pure and beautiful that it has no place in a world of mud and blood, and yet miraculously, it survives here. It survives in me. Knowing this, truly understanding this, makes the fear manageable. The cold is still a physical agony, the hunger still a gnawing beast, but they no longer have power over my spirit. My soul is in Vermont with you safe in the warmth of your library, and this body is merely the vessel the soldier tasked with carrying it home. This newfound peace is a fragile thing, I know. It is a candle flame in a hurricane. But for this one moment, it is everything. I can close my eyes, and I am not in this dugout. I am sitting with you on the banks of the Winooski River, skipping stones across the water's surface. I can hear the low hum of the insects and the tall grass, feel the late afternoon sun warm on my eyelids. I can feel the solid, reassuring pressure of your shoulder against mine. We don't need to speak. You're just together, in peace. It is moments like these brief, vivid flights of the soul, that will be my shield in the days to come. I will carry this feeling with me into the noise and the fury. It will be my secret armor. I will let the chaos of the world rage around me, but it will not touch the quiet, sacred center where you and I reside. But the world does not wait. The candle flame is already beginning to flicker. I can hear it now, the sounds of the camp stirring around me. The low murmur of voices, the clink of metal on metal as men check their gear. A corporal is moving down the line, his voice a low, urgent rasp, waking the sleeping soldiers. The beast is stirring from its brief slumber. The borrowed time, the stolen moment of peace, is coming to an end. An order is being passed down the trench. I can't make out the words, but I know their meaning. It is time to move. Time to leave this temporary shelter and step back out into the white hell of the forest. Time to be a soldier again. I have to end this letter. My hands, which felt so steady just moments ago, are beginning to tremble again. But this time, it is with a different kind of energy, not fear, but a grim readiness. Before I fold this piece of my soul and entrust it to the uncertain hands of fate, I have to ask one thing of you, my love. A task. A way for us to be together even when we are an ocean and a war apart. In the mornings when you first wake, I want you to do something for me. Before the town is fully awake, before the day's duties begin, take a warm coat and walk up to Miller's Ridge, the place where we can see the whole valley spread out below. Stand there facing the east. I want you to watch the sunrise. Watch as the first faint hint of light bleeds into the dark sky, turning it from black to indigo to a soft, hopeful gray. Watch as the colors deepen to orange and rose, and as the sun finally breaches the horizon, setting the snow and the distant peaks ablaze with golden fire. As you stand there feeling the first warmth of the new day on your face, I want you to know this, that somewhere on this side of the world, in the cold and the darkness, I will be looking for that same sun. I will be looking to the east, praying for the dawn that will mean the end of a long night of watching and waiting. In that moment, we will be sharing the same sky. We will be connected by that single, beautiful, unconquerable light. It will be our rendezvous. Please, Elle, do that for me. It will give me strength to face the darkness. I have to go. The corporal is at the entrance. He is calling my name. I am folding this letter now, so carefully. I am tucking it into the envelope with the Edelweiss, a promise within a promise. I hope it reaches you. I hope it tells you everything that is in my heart. All of it. Everything I am is in these pages. Read it and know that no matter what happens, no matter where this war takes me, the best part of me is always with you. Keep the promise safe, Eleanor. Keep him safe for me. Until we can climb mountains again. Yours forever, yours, Jimmy. Until we can climb mountains again. And so the letter ends. A promise left hanging in the cold December air. A final whisper of hope sent out into the vast, uncertain darkness. For 6 parts, we have walked with Jimmy Sullivan through the landscape of his memory and his fear. We felt the biting cold of his reality and the radiant warmth of his love for Eleanor. This was more than a letter home. It was a map of a man's soul, a declaration of his true battlefield. His vow was not to conquer the enemy, but to conquer the emptiness within. His promise was not one of survival, but of fidelity to the man. He was the man who climbed a mountain to retrieve a single, perfect flower, a fragile star in a world of darkness. That letter with the Edelweiss still pressed between its folds eventually completed its long journey. It arrived in a small town in Vermont in the early spring of 1945, finding its way into Eleanor's waiting hands. But the man who wrote it never followed. Sergeant James Sullivan wrote this letter on December 18, 1944. Less than 48 hours later, during a fierce engagement to hold the line near Bastogne, he was reported killed in action. He never saw another sunrise. He never got to climb mountains again. But in this final act of love, in this testament, you have just heard he fulfilled his most sacred promise. He ensured that the man Eleanor loved, the poet, the dreamer, the gentle soul, never truly died. That man was saved, kept safe within these pages forever. Letters like this are not merely echoes of the past. They are eternal monuments to a love that wars can never extinguish and to a human spirit that can find its truest purpose, even in the face of oblivion. Perhaps this story reminds you of a letter, a photograph, or a promise from your own family's history. We invite you to visit our website and share your reflections. Thank you for sharing this moment with us. I'm Ten Nguyen Dan Chuang Trin, wishing you a night of peaceful remembrance. Good night.